Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the What If guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Issei Became Phoenix King. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Hyoudou Issei was a serious young man known among women as one of the most desirable men. However, he was indifferent to the fame and recognition he received, knowing that their attraction stemmed from something that awakened within him when he was attacked by someone he thought would be his girlfriend. Days earlier, he had gone on a date with a girl named Amano Yuma, who had asked him out, and he couldn't refuse. The date had been ordinary, as Issei had some experience with dating girls from the academy. After each date, they would often ask him to go out again, but he turned them down, saying he was waiting for the right one. Although they cried from rejection, he managed to console each of them with a gentle kiss, the only way to calm their distress. After the date, as the sun set, they found themselves in front of a bridge. Amano Yuma turned to Issei and asked what he wanted to do. She then revealed a pair of angelic wings sprouting from her back and held a lance of light in her right hand, declaring that it was time for him to die to save her life. Issei, scratching his head, expressed his disappointment, saying he thought they could have had something special. Yuma, smiling, explained that she wished they could be together, but if she did, she would perish, and she didn't want that. With a farewell, she threw the lance at Issei, who managed to dodge it, surprising her. Yuma, astonished and frustrated, remarked on his abilities as a human. Issei, smiling, replied that he had trained his whole life and didn't think it would be easy for her to defeat him. She acknowledged his surprising skills but insisted he would still die. She threw another lance, which he dodged, but a third one was unavoidable. Feeling a surge of power within him, Issei's left arm was enveloped in a red gauntlet, allowing him to shatter the lance with a single blow. Yuma, frustrated, realized that he had awakened the boosted gear. Despite her anger, she claimed it wouldn't be enough to defeat her. Issei, understanding that the gauntlet increased his power, prepared to see what it could do. As the gem on the gauntlet began to pulse, he felt his strength growing, enabling him to evade Yuma's light lances. However, after 5 pulses, he began to feel dizzy, and his vision blurred. Suddenly, he collapsed to his knees, coughing up blood as his body could no longer withstand the strain. In that moment of vulnerability, Yuma launched a light lance that pierced his stomach, causing him to curse under his breath. Yuma approached him, saying he had fought well, but this was their end. Just as she was about to strike, a small girl with white hair, wearing the Academy uniform, kicked the lance away. Frustrated, Yuma created another lance, but it was destroyed by a lightning bolt. A woman, also in a uniform, intervened, stating that they couldn't let Issei die, as Razor had taken an interest in him for his entourage. Yuma, annoyed, remarked that even with 2 opponents, they wouldn't stand a chance against her. She threw 2 more lances, one of which was destroyed by a sword wielded by a blonde boy of Issei's age, while the other was incinerated by flames from another older blonde who matched Yuma's age. The older blonde smiled and told Yuma that the Hyoudou was theirs. He warned her to leave if she didn't want to die, offering her a chance since she was in his territory. Yuma, realizing the odds were against her, retreated, vowing that she would make them pay later. The older blonde then turned to his companion, asking if Issei still had enough energy to be reincarnated. A girl named Akino confirmed that he would need treatment afterward. Razor sighed, deciding he would ask Ravel to assist. He instructed Kaneko to help Issei with the treatment alongside Ravel. Kaneko, known as the Academy's mascot, nodded in agreement. Razor then requested Ravel to join Kaneko, emphasizing the need for all the help they could get. Ravel, a blonde girl with a moderate figure, agreed to assist, eager to finish the task quickly. Kaneko, with her white hair, looked serious as she commented that perverts would always be perverts. Ravel, annoyed, retorted that Kaneko was just as guilty for looking at their senior with desire. Kaneko blushed and denied it, insisting that Ravel was the one at fault. Razor intervened, lightly tapping both girls and reminding them to behave around Hyoudou-kun, warning that he would get angry if they didn't. Reluctantly, both girls agreed to calm down. Razor then instructed Kiba to keep watch over the perimeter, not wanting any surprises. Kiba, a blonde known for his good looks, acknowledged the order and disappeared from sight. Razor continued, telling the girls to take Hyoudou home and treat him, but warned them not to take advantage of his unconscious state. They agreed, playfully sticking their tongues out at Kiba as they left with Issei. Razor smiled to himself, pondering what to do with the mischievous girls, before turning to Akino, indicating it was time to leave. Akino, blushing, embraced Razor as they vanished through a magical circle. The next morning, Issei Hyoudou awoke feeling strange. He rubbed his head and noticed two figures under the sheets beside him. Nervous, he pulled back the covers to reveal two girls, one with white hair and a petite frame, and the other a blonde with a more ample figure. He exclaimed in shock, causing both girls to wake up. The white-haired girl smiled at him, asking if he was feeling better. The blonde chimed in, expressing surprise at how well Issei had handled the situation. Issei, flustered, questioned what they were doing in his bed, especially in such a state of undress. Before they could explain, the door to his room burst open, revealing his parents, who were astonished to see Issei with the two girls. They awkwardly suggested he take his time. As his parents left, they began to cheer joyfully, realizing their son had brought girls home for the first time. Issei, annoyed, turned to the girls and demanded an explanation for their presence. The blonde explained that he was no longer human but had been reincarnated as a demon, a member of Razor Phoenix's family. She demonstrated by sprouting a pair of fiery wings, while the white-haired girl revealed her own demon wings. Issei, seemingly unfazed, acknowledged this revelation. The white-haired girl asked if he wasn't surprised, to which he admitted he was, but he had pieced together some of the mystery, recalling that the girl he had dated was a fallen angel. He summoned his red gauntlet, prompting smiles from both girls. The blonde remarked that Razor had made a good choice, while the white-haired girl agreed, stating they could now avoid trouble. They decided it was time to head to the academy. Issei requested they call him by his first name, as everyone else did. The blonde agreed, urging him to hurry as they donned their uniforms. The white-haired girl remarked that he didn't seem like a typical pervert, to which Issei responded that he wasn't one to lose his mind over seeing a naked woman. However, he admitted that seeing two lovely first-year girls was quite calming. Understanding, the white-haired girl tossed him a male uniform, telling him to get dressed. Issei joked that they wouldn't see him naked again, causing both girls to blush. They denied having been watching him, looking away shyly. Issei decided to let it slide, smiling at them. Afterward, the trio left Issei's home, with his parents still emotional at the thought of having grandchildren, which embarrassed him. Upon arriving at the academy, they drew attention, as Issei was one of the most desired boys, accompanied by Kaneko and Ravel, two girls equally admired by the boys. Ravel smiled, saying they would see him later, promising to pick him up after class. Kaneko, annoyed, interrupted, insisting that she would not let Ravel take him alone. The two girls clashed, challenging each other. Issei, wanting to avoid conflict, suggested they both come for him, which made them happy. He sighed, realizing he was used to such situations but still hadn't adjusted to the attention. Classes went by normally, and after finishing, Issei noticed Ravel and Kaneko waiting for him. They led him to the old building where the occult club was located. Upon entering, Ravel announced that they had brought Issei, to which Razor responded with a smile, welcoming Issei and explaining that he had given him a second chance at life and hoped he would help him achieve his goals. Issei was intrigued by Razor's request to help him cancel his arranged engagement with Rosweis Gremry. Razor appeared serious as he projected a hologram of a red-haired girl, whose smile concealed something that made Issei uneasy. Issei questioned why Razor wanted to cancel the engagement, noting that Rosweis was a beautiful woman. Razor explained that Rosweis didn't care about the marriage, she was more interested in his entourage. He revealed that she was mostly a lesbian and had a whole group of beautiful women around her. Despite having 15 pieces in her collection, it was still not enough for her, and she wanted more. Issei remarked that it sounded like Rosweis was being unreasonable in her desires. Razor confirmed that many had tried to confront her, but her father and brother had done everything to protect her. Ultimately, they faced off in a raiding game, where Rosweis always emerged victorious. Razor needed the strength of the legendary Hyoudou, which was Issei's power, to defeat her. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Issei agreed to support Razor wholeheartedly, revealing his red gauntlet. Razor clarified that Issei possessed the left arm of the Red Dragon Emperor and had the power to lead them to victory. He promised to provide training so Issei could harness that power fully. Razor assigned Akino and Revel to teach Issei magic until he mastered it completely. Kaneko was to train him in hand-to-hand combat, ensuring he could hold his own without using the gauntlet, while Kiba would teach him swordsmanship and provide him with one of his most powerful swords. Razor emphasized the importance of Issei being at his best when Rosweis came to challenge them, wanting to distance himself from her and protect those he considered family. The group nodded in agreement, smiling at Razor's determination. However, unbeknownst to them, a bat-like creature was observing them and transmitting everything to a room where a naked red-haired girl was kissing another girl with purple hair, while a blonde provided pleasure. The red-haired girl found it amusing that Razor believed he could defeat her. She gazed at Issei's image, noting that while he was handsome, he did not surpass her father or brother in beauty. She considered him a valuable addition to her collection. Her followers eagerly agreed, expressing their excitement. The girl decided to give Razor and his group 2 weeks before she would claim what she believed was rightfully hers, ensuring they wouldn't say she hadn't given them a chance. 2 weeks passed since Issei began his training with the Phoenix group, significantly boosting his powers. He was able to communicate with the Red Dragon Emperor sealed in his left arm, who taught him how to maximize his abilities. The dragon recognized Issei as a prodigy, suggesting he could achieve the balance breaker in about 2 weeks, which would give the Phoenix group a significant advantage. After finishing his training, Issei headed to the Occult Research Club. Upon entering, he noticed Razor maintaining a serious expression as he faced Rosweis Gremory, who was teasing Akino. Issei addressed Razor, confirming that Rosweis was indeed the one he had heard about. Rosweis approached Issei, complimenting his looks and suggesting he join her for a more NTMT experience. Issei firmly declined, stating he had no interest in her advances. Rosweis, angered by his rejection, responded with a slap, insisting he should not speak to his future master that way. Kaneko and Revel were ready to retaliate, but Issei stopped them. He reiterated that he would not be her pet and would never accept her as his master. Razor then challenged Rosweis to a raiding game, which she accepted with a smile. A silver-haired maid appeared from a magic circle at Rosweis's command, instructed to summon her brother and report everything. With a wave of her hand, Rosweis declared that they had 2 weeks to prepare, anticipating that they would all become her subordinates by the end of it. Issei questioned why he had stopped Kaneko and Revel from intervening. He explained that he didn't want them to get hurt, appreciating their willingness to defend him. He turned to Razor, ready to begin their rigorous training. Razor confirmed that it was time to step up their training, promising a more intense regimen than before. To be continued. Hyoudou Issei found himself in the Underworld, specifically at the Phoenix Mansion, home to Razor Phoenix and Revel Phoenix. He was quite surprised by the mansion's size, which far exceeded that of Koa Academy. Razor smiled as he explained that this was where they would train Issei. He expressed a desire to train alongside Issei but noted that he needed to work alone to overcome his fears and perfect his flames. Issei, confused, asked if phoenixes were not supposed to be immortal. Razor acknowledged that while they were indeed immortal, there were ways to undermine that immortality, such as facing overwhelming power or breaking one's spirit. He emphasized that he viewed everyone as family, and the thought of anyone getting hurt or dying was something he could not bear. Issei nodded, understanding, and then noticed Akino, the dark-haired girl, embracing Razor from behind and whispering to him. He wondered who he would train with. Razor reminded Issei that he should have learned a lot from Kiba, Kaneko, Revel, and Akino. Issei confirmed that he had learned quite a bit and that his magical reserves were impressive for a high-class demon. Razor expressed pride in Issei's progress and called for Ruvel, his older brother, to join them. Ruvel entered the mansion with a smile, greeting Razor and playfully asking if he was there for training like in the old days. Razor clarified that he wanted Ruvel to train his new servant, the Hyoudou Issei, and explained that he had only 2 weeks to help Issei reach a new level. Rosweis, intrigued by Issei's title, agreed to train him but insisted that Issei also learn proper manners during the evenings, which Razor supported. Rosweis, feeling nervous about the request, was asked by Razor if she could teach Issei manners at night. Issei, confused, questioned why he needed to learn that. Razor explained that high-class servants must have good manners to earn and show respect. Issei accepted the challenge, determined to improve. Rosweis, with a grin, warned Issei that he would not go easy on him, as he was among the top 10 demons below the mouse. Issei, undeterred, expressed his willingness to endure tough training to increase his power. Days passed, and after just 3 days of training with Rosweis, everyone in Razor's entourage noticed significant growth in Issei. However, Issei felt it was not enough. He needed more power to have an advantage against Rosweis Gremory and to defeat her without losses. 10 days into their training in the Underworld, Issei relaxed in the hot springs alongside Razor and Kiba Hyoudou. Razor, looking serious, asked Issei if he believed his current level would be sufficient. Issei shook his head, gazing at his left hand, admitting he had not yet reached the power he desired. He felt he was close but needed more time. Razor reminded him that the confrontation was in 4 days and questioned whether Issei could achieve his goal by then. Razor inquired about Issei's determination. Issei, with a serious expression, replied that he would try, as he couldn't let that woman win under any circumstances. Razor smiled, appreciating Issei's motivation, and turned to Kiba, asking for his opinion on Issei's sword techniques. Kiba, feeling a bit embarrassed, admitted that Issei was already surpassing him. He hadn't expected Issei to have such potential with swords, but he believed that without the boosted gear, he could still win due to his knightly speed and experience. Issei sighed, acknowledging that Kiba had more time as a knight, which gave him superior speed. He had already mastered the rook and bishop, but he still couldn't unlock the full potential of the knight and queen. Razor encouraged Issei, reminding him that he had only been a demon for less than a month and had made remarkable progress. He suggested that in a month or 2, Issei might even surpass him. Issei smiled, feeling confident that he would surpass Razor Phoenix, his king and master, who had given him a second chance at life. Razor noted that the etiquette lessons had paid off and decided to leave Issei to relax for a while, advising him not to overexert himself. Issei agreed, maintaining his smile. As Razor stood up to leave with Kiba, Issei asked if he could achieve the balance breaker in 4 more days. He expressed the seriousness of the situation, knowing that it would determine his future whether he would have the chance to fight against the White Dragon or be known as the legendary dragon SLV. A deep voice interrupted his thoughts, expressing annoyance and confirming that if Issei couldn't achieve the balance breaker normally, he could do so by unleashing a strong emotion he had never felt before. Issei felt frustrated, realizing it was more challenging than he had anticipated, but he was determined to obtain that power. He wondered about the others inside, receiving a response that they were still refusing to grant him power unless he awakened the armor in a way never seen before. The Red Dragon emphasized that Issei needed to impress them. Issei felt irritated by their stubbornness and resolved to find a way to make them cooperate. As he decided to leave, he heard noises and whispers coming from the next room. 2 girls, Kaneko and Rosweis, were watching Issei, who was unaware of their presence. They were captivated by his appearance, but when Issei noticed them, they were startled and screamed, accusing him of being a pervert. Issei, amused, pointed out their hypocrisy. The 2 girls, flustered, pleaded with him not to tell Razor about their spying, explaining that they had hidden their curiosity because they feared Razor's reaction. Issei questioned why they were spying on him instead of Kiba, to which they replied that he was more handsome and desirable. Issei, feeling nervous, asked where they had developed such curiosity, as they didn't seem like the type. They confessed that a few months ago, they had found a magazine in Akino's room, which sparked their interest in such things. They had decided to keep it a secret and had been trying to spy on Hyoudou, but nothing had happened until they were caught. Kaneko explained that they had some knowledge of senjutsu to hide their presence, but their excitement had caused the effect to fail. Issei, amused by their confession, decided not to deny anything to the 2 cute girls. He smiled and playfully suggested that they could spy on him as much as they wanted, and even hinted at the idea of taking a bath together someday. The girls blushed deeply at the thought, and in a flurry of embarrassment, they shouted at him for being a pervert before running out of the room, their faces bright red. Issei chuckled, finding their reactions endearing. Days later, Razor Phoenix's group gathered in the occult clubroom, waiting for the moment to begin the rating game. Razor asked Issei if he was ready for what lay ahead. Razor looked seriously at Issei and confidently stated that they would win without any difficulty. Meanwhile, in another part of the underworld, specifically at the Gremory mansion, a red-haired young man smiled as he asked Rosweis if she was ready for the rating game. Rosweis, also smiling, replied that Razor would not know what to expect. The older red-haired man handed her some pamphlets, assuring her that no one would know she had orchestrated this to secure her victory and achieve her desires. Rosweis thanked her father, expressing her frustration that her mother and another person did not understand her new tastes. He reassured her that no one loved her more than her brother and father. Rosweis declared that she would celebrate her victory in grand style, and with that, she vanished in a magic circle, ready to bring new challenges for herself. Back with the Phoenix group, they were in a replica of Ko Academy, specifically in the occult clubroom, where they had their strategy ready. They planned to split into 4 groups: Kaneko and Issei, Kiba, Akino, and Razor, along with Ravel, who would be the last to enter after the first 4 dealt with most of the Gremory pieces. Issei and Kaneko arrived at the building housing Rosweis' Gremory space, but they found it strange that they had not encountered any of her pieces. Elsewhere, Akino Himejima had just finished her battle against Rosweis' Gremory's queen, Hyoudou, who lay on the ground with several injuries, while Razor's queen had barely any. Akino remarked that Hyoudou had fought hard, but it was over now. Hyoudou, however, insisted that it was not finished yet. A blonde girl in a revealing outfit arrived, and Hyoudou welcomed her. The blonde explained that Rosweis had kept her busy until she had reached her limits. Hyoudou urged her to come closer, and they shared a brief kiss, which left Akino feeling disgusted. Moments later, the 2 girls separated, both blushing, and Hyoudou appeared uninjured. The blonde encouraged Hyoudou to take down Akino, and Hyoudou took to the air, creating a large explosion in front of Akino. Akino attempted to create a protective magic circle, but it was futile and shattered. Hyoudou laughed, crediting her recovery to the blonde's assistance. Akino, frustrated, realized she could not let Razor lose this fight and summoned a dark wing, revealing her fallen angel nature. Hyoudou was taken aback, surprised to see a fallen angel. Akino retorted that it was none of Hyoudou's business and prepared to unleash a powerful attack. A massive bolt of lightning, shaped like a phoenix, shot toward Akino, who was quickly overwhelmed, marking the first defeat for Rosweis' Gremory's pieces. An announcement echoed through the area, confirming the defeat of the queen and one of Rosweis' bishops. Issei, standing at the entrance of Rosweis' base, noted that Akino had succeeded but wondered why they had not encountered any of Rosweis' pieces. Meanwhile, Kiba Yuto wandered through a small forest in the Academy replica, feeling confused as he had not seen any of Rosweis' pieces either. He expressed his concern that neither Issei nor Kaneko had found anything, and with Akino having just defeated a queen and a bishop, he wondered where the rest were. Suddenly, from the shadows, 8 pawns of Rosweis emerged, all smiling. Kiba declared that he would defeat them all, drawing a second sword. The pawns responded with a unified chant, shocking Kiba. Back with Issei and Kaneko, they heard another announcement confirming Kiba's defeat. Issei, alarmed, urged Kaneko to hurry as they raced to the rooftop, where they found Razor Phoenix alongside his sister and Akino. Razor smiled, telling Rosweis to surrender, believing she could not win. Rosweis, undeterred, snapped her fingers, summoning her pieces, leaving the Phoenix group bewildered. Razor felt confused as he looked at the situation unfolding before him. Rosweis, with a confident smile, reminded him that it was clear he was destined to lose from the start. The red-haired queen commanded her pieces to attack, and they swiftly overwhelmed Himejima Akino with a barrage of magical strikes, leading to her elimination from the game. Razor, frustrated, shouted out in anger, blaming Rosweis for his loss. Rosweis, filled with pride, pointed out the overwhelming odds in her favor, boasting about her numerous allies compared to his few remaining pieces. Razor, gritting his teeth, conjured a massive wall of fire, calling for his sister Ravel to support him. Ravel complied, ready to assist her brother. Razor turned to Kaneko, urging her to unleash her most powerful weapon, as it was their last hope to help Hyoudou Issei reach his full potential. Kaneko hesitated, expressing her doubts about whether it would work, but Razor insisted it was their only chance against Rosweis and her hidden tricks. With determination, Kaneko focused on Issei, asking him to look at her. She transformed, revealing a pair of white cat ears and a tail, surprising Issei. He was taken aback, feeling a blush rise to his cheeks, while Kaneko seemed confused by his reaction. Rosweis, amused, remarked on Kaneko's unexpected appearance, noting that she would enjoy seeing her potential unfold. Issei, now serious, declared that he would not allow anyone to harm Kaneko or Ravel. A member of Rosweis's team charged at him, but he stood firm, refusing to flinch. Fueled by rage, Issei unleashed his power, transforming into his Hyoudou form, surrounded by a crimson armor adorned with green gems. The immense power radiating from him astonished everyone. Voices of past Hyoudou wielders echoed, promising Issei the maximum power he could harness in that moment. An explosive surge of energy erupted, clearing the rooftop and eliminating Rosweis's pieces, leaving everyone in shock. Issei approached Kaneko, reassuring her that he would protect her at all costs. Grateful, Kaneko expressed her trust in him. Issei then turned his attention to Rosweis, challenging her strength and vowing never to let her harm Kaneko or Ravel. With his power amplified, he confronted Rosweis, who dismissed him as merely a child with a sealed dragon. As she launched a dark energy attack, Issei vanished and reappeared in front of her, readying twin cannons on his shoulders. He questioned if she would surrender, but she defiantly refused. Issei unleashed a powerful attack, engulfing Rosweis in a torrent of energy that left her battered but alive. He warned her that next time, he would not be so merciful, hinting at the severity of what she would face if she continued her threats. Rosweis, struggling to respond, could only muster a weak retort, while Issei made it clear that he had his reasons for holding back, but he would not hesitate if she crossed the line again. A blush, unusual for the redhead, appeared on her cheeks, resembling that of a girl in love for the first time, as her body faded into particles. The King Gremory has fallen. Victory belongs to Razor Phoenix. Issei felt a wave of relief wash over him as he collapsed onto the ground, his armor disappearing. He began to breathe heavily, feeling the ache in his body. He had done it. He was greeted by Kaneko, who hugged him tightly, expressing her pride. Issei managed a pained smile as he gently patted her head, reminding her to be careful since he was still recovering from the intense battle that had drained nearly all his magical reserves. He promised that he wouldn't let anyone harm her. Meanwhile, another girl joined the embrace, declaring that Issei wasn't just Kaneko's. Issei winced, feeling the pain in his body, and reminded them both that he was still hurting. Razor smiled at Issei, acknowledging his unexpected performance and suggesting he take a 2-day rest at home. Issei agreed, thinking that some quiet time in bed would be just what he needed to recover. In another area, the spectators were divided. The two red-haired individuals were furious, while a brown-haired girl and a silver-haired girl simply smiled. The younger redhead expressed his anger, claiming that Issei had cheated, insisting it was impossible for him to defeat Rosweis. The elder redhead, the patriarch of the Gremory family, echoed his sentiments. Venelana, the brown-haired woman, defended Issei, stating that he hadn't cheated compared to Rosweis. Grafia, the silver-haired woman, pointed out that it was impossible for all of Rosweis's pawns to be promoted to queen at once, implying foul play. The younger redhead, furious, insisted that Grafia should obey him as her husband. Grafia, however, firmly stated that she could no longer see him as her husband or even as a man, asserting that Issei was far more honorable since he hadn't cheated to support anyone. Zudicus, the elder redhead, argued back, claiming Issei had cheated. Venelana countered, stating that he played fairly and was more of a man than they were, who were caught up in their own affairs despite being married to them. Zudicus dismissed her, expressing indifference towards her feelings and stating that he only kept her around for Rheus's sake. Seriousness, the elder redhead, declared that Rheus was far more beautiful and young than them, suggesting they go and pamper her to restore her spirit. As they left, the two women were left fuming at the behavior of their husbands. They turned their attention to the screens, watching the Hyoudou Issei, knowing he could accept their feelings and potentially heal their wounded hearts. Meanwhile, Rheus Gremory was in intensive care, recovering quickly thanks to Zudicus's regenerative magic. He gently caressed her cheek, asking if she was feeling better and assuring her that the one who hurt her would pay. Rheus turned away, insisting that nothing should be done to him. Seriousness, frustrated, reminded her that he had cheated in her battle against Razor and deserved punishment. Rheus firmly shouted that she didn't want anything done to him. Both men left the room, leaving Rheus alone with her thoughts. She hugged a pillow, reflecting on Issei's words and contemplating whether she could change her way of being. In the human world, specifically on the outskirts of Ko, a figure in a white coat, wrapped in bandages, smiled at the city. After so much time, she had returned. With a hint of nostalgia, she took a photo of two children, one with blue hair and a green streak, embracing a brown-haired boy, who showed a slight blush. She hoped Issei was well, having returned after so many years. 2 days after the raiding game concluded, Hyoudou Issei was on his way to school, yawning. He felt that the brief vacation had been refreshing. Suddenly, a scream pierced the air, startling him. Hyoudou Issei was accompanying a girl named Asia Argento, a nun who had come to Ko to meet a friend at the old church in the city, and they were nearing their destination. Issei walked alongside the blonde girl, curious about her plans. She smiled and mentioned that her friend was one of the few people she considered a true friend, expressing her fondness for both her friend and Issei, whom she now regarded as an important friend. Issei scratched his cheek, feeling a bit confused by her praise. Asia explained that he had helped her and was accompanying her to see her friend, whispering the last part in a way that Issei couldn't quite catch. When he asked if she had said something, she simply smiled and assured him that she hadn't. As they approached their destination, Asia thanked him for his help, and Issei responded with a smile, saying he enjoyed helping others. Asia decided to keep his secret, smiling as she continued walking, expressing hope that they would meet again. Issei wished her luck, pondering her words about a secret and feeling a bit perplexed by what she might know. In front of Asia stood a hooded figure dressed in white. The figure greeted her, noting that she had taken her time. Asia apologized, explaining that she had a little accident but was helped by someone. The hooded figure removed her hood, revealing brown hair styled in twin tails and a friendly smile. She encouraged Asia to hurry so they could complete the mission given to them by Michael. Meanwhile, Issei was in the occult club, seated on a sofa with Kaneko perched on his lap, enjoying a treat, while Ravel sat beside him, both girls smiling. Razor Phoenix, a blonde, mentioned that the issue with Rheus Gremory had been resolved for the time being, suggesting they might have some peace. Issei, feeling puzzled, asked if it would really last. Razor explained that while Rheus might not act, her father, Zudicus Gremory, or her brother, Seriousness Lucifer, could pose a threat, especially since Issei had defeated Rheus in a humiliating manner. He emphasized the need for them to train harder to defend themselves against any potential attacks. Issei declared that he would protect his friends at all costs, regardless of who the opponent was, whether a Mao or a god. Kaneko and Ravel supported his determination, but Razor reminded them that Seriousness was not an ordinary Mao. He was the strongest demon ever, with power rumored to rival that of the celestial dragons before they were sealed away. Issei was taken aback, realizing the gravity of the situation. Razor urged him to focus intensely on his training during the upcoming vacation, as even with their combined efforts, they would struggle against such overwhelming power. Issei compared it to the Hakai from Dragon Ball, to which Razor confirmed it was similar, though not quite at that level. Issei acknowledged the seriousness of the threat, expressing his willingness to sacrifice himself to protect his friends. Razor hoped it wouldn't come to that, especially for Kaneko and Ravel, who would be heartbroken. Ravel, feeling emotional, protested against her brother's words, while Issei reassured her of his care, causing her to blush and feel flustered. As the chapter concluded, the story hinted at future developments and challenges that awaited Issei and his friends, setting the stage for their ongoing adventures. The white-haired girl looked at the brown-haired boy and expressed her affection, saying she loved him very much. He embraced her, and she smiled in return, feeling comforted by his words. He vowed that he would never allow anyone to harm them, and those who tried would not live to see another minute. The blonde phoenix stood up, preparing to leave with Akino and Kiba Hyoudou. He informed the group that the second and first-year students would be on break for about an hour due to meetings and other matters, giving the couple some time alone. The brown-haired boy questioned why Kiba was leaving, to which Kiba replied that he had things to do and didn't want to intrude on his friend's relationship. He smiled and said goodbye. Akino, the black-haired girl, reminded the brown-haired boy to take care of Kaneko and Ravel, but also warned him not to overstep until their relationship was more formalized, adding playfully that she wouldn't mind giving him a little punishment. This comment sent a shiver down his spine as he noticed the mischievous smile on her face. He nervously assured her that he wouldn't do anything inappropriate. Akino and Kiba then left, leaving him feeling uneasy about Akino's playful threat. 2 days had passed since Hyoudou Issei had fallen unconscious after using the Juggernaut drive, fueled by rage at what Kokubile had done to his precious companion, Kaneko Tuju. Upon learning of Issei's sacrifice to bring her back and the cost he had to pay, Kaneko had cried and refused to leave his side, giving him several sessions of senjutsu to restore the vitality he had lost. So far, he had only regained about 2 months of life, which brought her some joy, but she knew it would take much more to fully restore him. At that moment, Issei was waking up as Kaneko was giving him another session of senjutsu. He opened his eyes, initially seeing a blurry figure before focusing and recognizing Kaneko. Without warning, he embraced the small Nikomata, shedding tears of happiness at seeing her well. He expressed his relief that she was okay, smiling through his tears. Kaneko, however, felt sorrowful, lamenting that she had lost almost all her life because of him and that she had even lost an arm. She called herself useless. Issei reassured her that it was his fault for not protecting her, admitting he had failed and could not let Kokubile go unpunished for hurting her. Kaneko insisted that he should forget about it, trying to calm him down. She acknowledged her own foolishness for recklessly confronting a cadre. Issei comforted her, stating he would do anything to protect her, even if it cost him his life. Kaneko, determined not to let her weakness endanger him, clenched her fists and expressed her fear of losing him forever. They agreed to train harder together to become stronger, as Issei declared he didn't want to lose his precious Kohai. Kaneko thanked him, expressing her gratitude for everything he had done, not just for her but for everyone. Issei assured her that as long as she and the others were safe, that was all that mattered. Kaneko smiled and rested her head against his chest. Just then, Draig interrupted their moment, stating that they needed to have a serious talk. Issei looked at his arm, wondering what was wrong. Draig explained that there were 2 matters to discuss, one good and one bad. Issei asked to hear the good news first. Draig informed him that many mythical beings were aware of his actions against Kokubile and his encounter with Hades. Issei was confused, thinking he had just fought Kokubile, but Draig clarified that the fear Kokubile felt was due to Issei's overwhelming rage, a level of fury that Draig had never witnessed in all his centuries of existence. He felt a sense of pride in Issei's power. When Issei inquired about the bad news, Draig revealed that his life had been shortened to less than 2 weeks due to the use of the Juggernaut drive and its monstrous power. However, thanks to Kaneko, his life had been extended a little longer. Issei asked how much longer he had gained, and Draig grimly informed him it was only 2 months of his more than 10,000 years of life, which was less than 1% restored. He warned Issei that he was completely prohibited from using the Juggernaut drive again until he restored his life. Issei understood and promised to try to recover his life more quickly. Draig suggested he ask Kaneko, as she knew a technique to help with that. With that, Draig ended the communication. Issei turned to Kaneko, curious about what Draig had meant. The brown-haired boy looked at the small white-haired girl, who was blushing and looking away, and asked if she was ready. She stammered that for the special technique they were discussing, they needed to be very close. He was surprised by her response, and she offered to participate if it was with him. He hesitated, asking if she was sure. She assured him that she wouldn't mind if it was with him, and he felt a rush of warmth at her words. He agreed, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. As they moved closer, he complimented her beauty, causing her to blush even more. She expressed her desire to be close to him, and he felt a surge of affection. They shared a tender moment, with him gently touching her cheek, and she responded with a shy smile. He promised to cherish her forever, and she encouraged him to take the next step. With a deep breath, he laid her back gently, feeling a sense of responsibility and care for her. He wanted to ensure that their bond was special and meaningful. As they embraced, he felt a rush of emotions, and she clung to him, expressing her feelings. He reassured her of his love, and they shared a moment of connection that transcended words. The atmosphere was filled with warmth and affection, as they both felt the depth of their feelings for each other. Afterward, he wrapped her in a blanket, ensuring she was comfortable, and expressed how much he cared for her. He opened the door to leave, only to be met with a sudden embrace from Ravel, who had tears in her eyes. He quickly returned the hug, apologizing for worrying her. She insisted that he should never put himself in danger again, expressing her fear of losing him. He comforted her, promising that he would always be there. They shared a moment of understanding, and she inquired about his relationship with Kaneko. He explained that they had to bond to restore his vitality, mentioning a technique that required a deep connection. Ravel listened intently, her concern evident. He reassured her that he would never be a burden and expressed his gratitude for her support. She admitted that she understood why he had to do it with Kaneko, but she also revealed her own feelings for him, blushing as she spoke. He was taken aback but felt a rush of warmth at her confession. She insisted that she wanted to be close to him as well. After a moment of hesitation, he agreed, suggesting they go to her room. Once inside, Ravel began to prepare herself, her cheeks flushed with shyness. She expressed her readiness, and he felt a mix of excitement and tenderness. They shared a kiss, both feeling the weight of their emotions. As they embraced, she expressed her desire to be close to him, and he promised to cherish her. They shared a moment of connection, feeling the bond between them deepen. He lifted her gently, ensuring she felt safe and cared for. In that NTMT moment, they both felt a sense of belonging and love, knowing that they were creating a special memory together. The atmosphere was filled with warmth, and they both knew that this moment would be cherished forever. The blonde let out a soft moving excitedly on her own. Ravel called out to Issei, kissing her neck while gently massaging her back, causing her to respond with more soft sounds. Issei felt the heat of the moment as Ravel passionately called his name, moving her hips closer to him, reaching a peak of excitement. She expressed her overwhelming feelings, and Issei, holding her close, shared in the intensity of the moment. Afterward, both of them lay there, breathless, and Issei kissed Ravel, inviting her to rest against his chest as they prepared to sleep. It had been a few days since Issei had awakened, and thanks to the sessions of Buchijutsu, he had regained about 60% of his vitality, even though they weren't held every day. During that time, the last piece of razor had been introduced to Issei. His name was Gasper Vladi, a half-vampire who was a recluse and had a timid nature. Due to a meeting, Razor and Aquino had to leave Issei to try to coax Gasper out. He spent hours attempting to convince the young vampire to come out. Issei asked if Gasper felt like a monster because of his sacred gear that could freeze time. Gasper, hiding in a box, admitted that he did feel like one. Issei, with a serious tone, explained that he was the one who had caused fear during the school attack, revealing that he was the monster Gasper feared. Gasper, confused and surprised, listened as Issei recounted the destruction he had caused, including the loss of Kaneko, but emphasized that he had done everything he could to save her. Gasper emerged from his box, expressing that everyone trusted Issei, but Issei reminded him of the consequences of his actions. He shared that he had sacrificed his arm to save Kaneko and had faced powerful foes, including a god of death, though he didn't consider those battles victories. Gasper, amazed, saw Issei as a hero, but Issei insisted he was not one, merely someone with a powerful dragon sealed in a gauntlet. Gasper admired Issei, wanting to follow in his footsteps. Issei then asked why Gasper dressed as a girl, to which Gasper shyly responded that he felt he looked cuter that way. Issei complimented him but encouraged him to find someone he wanted to protect. Gasper admitted there was someone, but he felt too weak to do so. Issei promised to help him become stronger and asked if he had feelings for anyone. Gasper blushed, recalling a friend who had helped him escape. Issei vowed to help Gasper become more confident so he could be with her. Days passed, and Zenobia, Issei's childhood friend, became the last knight piece of Razor. News came of an upcoming meeting between the biblical factions due to the Kokabeel incident, where Issei and Razor's group were to attend alongside Sona and her entourage. On the day of the meeting, Issei entered to see the leaders of the factions, Ajuka Beelzebub and Seraphal Leviathan, along with Azazel from the fallen angels. Issei recognized Azazel from a past encounter. Among the angels was Michael, the overlord of heaven. As Issei glanced around, his vision suddenly darkened. Confused, he reached out to touch something, feeling a soft texture and hearing a sound that startled him. When he pulled back, he found himself face to face with Seraphal Leviathan. Blushing, he questioned her actions, and Seraphal, with stars in her eyes, expressed her desire to see him transform into a dragon. Sona, annoyed, pulled her sister away, scolding her to behave. Seraphal, playfully pouting, insisted she wanted to hug the dragon. Issei, feeling nervous, offered to show Seraphal his dragon form if she promised to behave. Excitedly, she agreed, eager for the chance. Seraphal exclaimed with a broad smile as she took a seat, brightening the atmosphere of the meeting. Sona, the black-haired Citri, sighed in appreciation, thanking Hyoudou for his support. The brown-haired boy responded with a warm smile, causing a slight blush to appear on the face of the Citri heiress. Before the meeting commenced, the governor of the fallen angels approached Hyoudou with a case in hand. He mentioned that he had learned about Hyoudou's troubles with Kokabeel and the unfortunate incident involving one of his subordinates. He wanted to present a gift to help mend the situation. Hyoudou accepted the case, opening it to find a mechanical arm that seemed to move as if it had a life of its own, where his right arm once was. He was taken aback by the sight. The black-haired governor explained that the arm was crafted using biotechnology and magic, designed to feel like Hyoudou's original arm after a few moments. Hyoudou tested the arm, marveling at how natural it felt. The governor then informed him that after the meeting he would be taken to Asgard, as the god Odin wished to see him, leaving Hyoudou surprised. The meeting of the factions concluded after over an hour of discussions among the leaders of the three major factions. The decision now rested with the two celestial dragons, the Welsh dragon and the vanishing dragon. Azazel, the black-haired governor, smiled as he turned to his silver-haired companion, asking for his thoughts on the matter. Vale, the albino dragon, responded that as long as he could fight strong opponents and wasn't disturbed while busy in his room, he had no objections. Azazel teased Vale about his ability to train a woman, claiming he had tricks to ensure she would be unable to live without him. Vale raised an eyebrow, questioning Azazel's success in such matters, noting that he had yet to keep a woman around for more than a week. Azazel laughed, insisting that he was simply too much for them. Vale countered, suggesting it might be due to his lack of convincing charm. Deciding to move on, Azazel turned to Hyoudou, asking for his decision. Hyoudou agreed, acknowledging that he needed to accept the offer since he had received something valuable in return. With that, Azazel confirmed the agreement, checking if anyone had objections. Michael, the blonde angel, smiled and stated that he had no complaints, while Ajuka Beelzebub, the green-haired leader, also agreed. Seraphal Leviathan, the black-haired demon, expressed her satisfaction as well. Azazel then playfully inquired about their secret guest, creating a small lance of light and sending it toward a corner of the room, which was stopped by a magical circle. He called for Cat-Area Leviathan to reveal herself. A woman with brown skin, glasses, and a striking figure appeared, dressed in a way that left little to the imagination. She smiled, acknowledging Azazel's reputation but declared her intent to defeat everyone present. Azazel laughed off her bravado, suggesting they settle things privately. Kateria dismissed the idea with disdain, insisting she had no interest in such matters. Azazel chuckled, teasing her about her competitive spirit. The tension rose as Seraphal stood up, declaring her intention to take on Kateria. Kateria laughed, finding the challenge amusing, but Seraphal's serious demeanor signaled her determination. As the two women exited the meeting room, they spread their demon wings, facing each other with resolve. Kateria thought to herself that if she defeated Seraphal, she would prove herself worthy of the title of Mal Leviathan. Meanwhile, Seraphal daydreamed about Hyoudou showing her his dragon form, imagining the joy of riding on his back. With excitement, she called out to Kateria, ready for the challenge ahead. The dark-haired girl charged towards Seraphal, her arm brimming with demonic power, expressing her frustration as she prepared to strike. Seraphal remained calm, waiting for Kateria's attack. Just as Kateria was about to land a blow, Seraphal deftly deflected it with one hand and delivered a powerful knee strike to Kateria's stomach, causing her to cough up a significant amount of blood. The brown-haired boy watched in astonishment as Seraphal executed her first strike against Kateria, noting the damage it caused. He remarked on her impressive hand-to-hand combat skills. Sona Citri, the black-haired girl, smiled as she commented on Seraphal's incredible magical abilities in ice and her combat prowess, confidently stating that Kateria would be no match for her sister. The boy continued to express his amazement, declaring Seraphal to be incredible. Kateria, wiping the blood from her mouth and breathing heavily, insisted that this would not be enough to defeat her. Seraphal, creating a magical circle, urged Kateria to surrender. Kateria, enveloped in a dark aura, defiantly declared that she would not give up even if it meant using her ultimate power. However, Seraphal closed her fist, causing several ice spikes to pierce Kateria's body. The attack elicited a loud cry of pain from Kateria, who then fell unconscious from blood loss. Seraphal sighed, stating that it was over. The brown-haired boy was left in awe of how quickly Seraphal had defeated Kateria with just 2 attacks. Azazel, the black-haired boy, nervously reflected on why he would never want to anger Seraphal. The white-haired boy smiled, finding Seraphal interesting, and called out to Hyoudou Issei, the brown-haired boy. He teased that if Issei did not take care of Seraphal, he might steal the Mal Leviathan from him. Issei, looking seriously at the white-haired boy, expressed confusion over why he would want to fight him. The white-haired boy acknowledged that he had 2 things to do, postponing their fight for now. He then asked if he could take Kateria with him, prompting Azazel to question whether he wanted her as a partner or for another reason. The white-haired boy clarified that he had questions only she could answer, so it was essential that she remained alive. Ajuka, observing the exchange, stated that he had no issue with it as long as the white-haired boy did not ally with her. The white-haired boy laughed, assuring them that he was not foolish enough to be swayed by her appearance. With that, Vale, the white-haired boy, took the descendant of Mal Leviathan with him. Azazel then informed Issei that it was time to visit the Nordic faction to see Odin, who was looking for him. Issei agreed and prepared to leave. Seraphal suddenly interrupted, reminding Issei of his promise to show her his dragon form. Issei, scratching the back of his head, acknowledged her request and agreed to demonstrate it. Outside, Issei began to concentrate, his body growing in size and his skin changing color. Wings sprouted from his back, and a tail emerged. His neck elongated, his hands and feet transformed into claws, and his face morphed until he fully took on the form of a dragon. Draig, his dragon partner, confirmed that Issei had completed the first stage of his transformation, proudly declaring him a true dragon. Issei remarked on the strange yet comfortable feeling of his new form. Without warning, Seraphal rushed toward him and embraced him tightly, behaving like a child who did not want to let go. After nearly an hour, Issei was on his way to the Nordic faction, traveling alone in a carriage pulled by a pair of 8-legged horses. With his eyes closed, he meditated within the boosted gear. Confused by the desolate surroundings, Issei asked Draig why the place seemed nearly deserted. Drake explained that the previous bearers had given up their powers and vanished for eternity, allowing Issei to gain strength against Hades. Issei was taken aback, realizing the gravity of the situation and feeling guilty. Drake reassured him that the previous bearers would have left eventually, as their souls were no longer bound by the curse of the Juggernaut Drive. Issei felt slightly better knowing he had helped them find peace. Drake then revealed that 4 of Issei's pawn pieces had mutated, with more likely to follow. Issei was astonished and questioned how this was possible. Drake explained that the mutations were a result of Issei's knight, rook, bishop forms, and the Juggernaut Drive. He humorously noted that if this continued, Issei would soon have to stop being Razor Phoenix's pawn due to the pieces not being able to handle his power. Issei was incredulous, realizing he had barely begun his journey as a demon and was already facing such challenges. The brown-haired young man expressed his disbelief as he recalled Drake's words. Drake looked at him intently and reminded him that even Azazel had admitted that his evolution would not place him among the high-class demons. The young man acknowledged Drake's point, reflecting on a past encounter. In a flashback, Azazel had approached Issei before he departed in the carriage sent by Odin. He had pulled Issei aside, wanting to speak with him. Azazel informed Issei that his achievements were something no high-class demon had ever accomplished in their lifetime. Not only had he defeated Kokobeel, but he had also bravely challenged Hades, even when it had nearly cost him his life. Issei, looking away, questioned the relevance of Azazel's words. Azazel continued, stating that if he were a Mao or part of the council, he would promote Issei to high class immediately. Issei was taken aback by this revelation, incredulous that he had only been reincarnated as a demon for less than a year. Azazel reassured him that it was hard to believe, but in less than a year he had achieved what no one else had in their entire life. He placed a hand on Issei's shoulder, acknowledging him as the legendary Hyoudou Issei who had faced Kokobeel and confronted Hades to bring one of his girls back to life. Azazel expressed his respect, noting that even he and the Maos would not have dared to do such a thing. Issei felt honored by the recognition. Azazel pointed out that even Valley held a certain respect and fear for him, which was impressive considering Valley was the most powerful Hakuryuku of all time. Issei was surprised by this unexpected acknowledgement. Azazel confidently stated that he was sure Issei would be promoted soon, mentioning that Ajuka had seen something in him that validated his belief. Issei, confused, asked what he meant, but Azazel simply indicated that it was time for Issei to leave, wishing him luck and advising him not to do anything foolish. As the flashback ended, Issei stepped out of the boosted gear, feeling a bit overwhelmed. He hoped Ravel wouldn't tell her parents or Ruvel about their recent activities, fearing they might either threaten him or force him into marriage after giving him a lesson. He sighed, wondering what would come next, perhaps a commitment to someone he had just met. Moments later, he shouted in frustration as he witnessed a beautiful white-haired girl shaking an elderly man, who merely smiled at the unfolding scene. The girl, Rosweis, exclaimed in disbelief at Odin's decision, questioning why he had taken such actions on his own. Odin, slightly dizzy, urged her to calm down, explaining that it would ultimately benefit everyone. Rosweis, still agitated, demanded to know what he was talking about. Odin instructed her to stop shaking him, and once she complied, he laid out his reasoning. She would find a boyfriend, they would have the Hyoudou Issei on their side, she would prevent him from falling back into a troubled state, and everyone would be happy. Rosweis felt that Odin's points were merely excuses, suspecting he wanted her out of the way to pursue younger women for his own desires. Odin quickly denied her accusations, claiming he was only thinking of her well-being and that of their factions. She held back her urge to hit him, knowing it would be beneath her. Odin then pointed out that Issei was quite attractive, being a dragon and the legendary Hyoudou Issei. He suggested that she would gain merit from being with him and could flaunt it to those who had rejected her in the past. Rosweis admitted that Issei was indeed handsome and found herself contemplating revenge against those who had wronged her. Odin smiled, pleased with her response, and stated that they would all benefit from this arrangement. However, Rosweis turned her gaze back to Issei, pondering what he thought of the situation. Issei, scratching his cheek, honestly remarked that he could not deny her beauty. If she accepted, he saw no reason to refuse, but he insisted they should get to know each other first, recalling a past experience that had not gone well. Odin, satisfied with this exchange, declared that Hyoudou Issei was now Rosweis. Issei was left wondering what he had gotten himself into. Hyoudou Issei was walking alongside the Valkyrie Rosweis through the halls of Odin's residence. Two significant events had occurred. First, a new meeting was to take place where Odin would represent the Nordic faction, although that would be in a few weeks. Second, Issei had accepted his commitment to Rosweis, who reciprocated his feelings and felt a bit happy about it. As they walked, Rosweis shared stories about her life, revealing that she was a talented Valkyrie and had never been courted by anyone, nor had she ever had a boyfriend. Remembering this made her feel somewhat sad. Issei expressed his frustration, noting how foolish the men in that place were. He remarked that it was ridiculous to prefer a woman who easily gave herself to anyone over one who demanded respect. He stated that he would always choose someone with a strong attitude over someone who was swayed by appearances. Rosweis felt happy upon hearing his words, knowing he was different from the others she had encountered. She then asked him to share more about himself. Issei mentioned that he had been reincarnated about 2 months ago after being killed by a girl who had asked him out. He chuckled at the irony of how a typical day had ended in his demise. Rosweis was surprised to learn that his reincarnation had occurred only 2 months prior, as she had thought it had been at least 6 months. Issei explained that he often received requests for dates but made it clear that he wasn't interested in romantic relationships. He only accepted dates to avoid seeing women sad, especially those close to him. When Rosweis inquired about his entry into the Juggernaut Drive, Issei confirmed that it was triggered by witnessing Kokabeel harm one of the most important women in his life. He admitted he had practically given up his life for that moment but would do the same for anyone by his side, including her. Just then, Issei sensed someone hiding nearby and called out to them. He activated his gauntlet, and from the shadows emerged a man in his mid-20s with long white hair, dressed in a white and gray suit. He looked at Issei and Rosweis with an air of superiority. Loki, the god of mischief and son of Odin, had come to see who the guest was that his father had brought. He expressed his disappointment, stating that he had expected a great warrior but found only a child, calling mortals pathetic. Rosweis defended Issei, reminding Loki that he had managed to injure Hades. Loki scoffed at the idea that Issei could have hurt Hades, dismissing him as weak and stating that he could easily kill Issei. He conjured a Nordic magic circle aimed at Issei, who prepared to activate his balance breaker. However, Loki soon lost interest, claiming it would be a waste of time to kill Issei and that he didn't want to deal with his father over such matters. He bid them farewell and walked away slowly. Issei felt irritation at Loki's arrogance, recalling how he hadn't encountered such disdain since Kokabeel or even Rhys Gremry. Rosweis placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, reminding him that Loki treated everyone with disdain and believed himself superior. She reassured Issei that with his progress, he might be able to defeat Loki in a few years. They decided to leave. Issei relaxed slightly and mentally communicated with Drake, asking for a way to defeat a god of Loki's caliber, sensing that trouble was on the horizon. Drake acknowledged the feeling and mentioned he would try to gather information about the other version of Issei that had once controlled him, hoping it would be useful in the future. After about half an hour, Issei and Rosweis were back in the carriage, having just left Asgard and heading towards Ku. Issei sensed something was off and felt as though someone was watching them. Rosweis was confused by his statement, but Issei activated his gauntlet to enhance his senses, though he couldn't detect anyone nearby. He returned to his seat, still feeling the unsettling sensation of being observed. A little less than a kilometer away, a man with silver hair, appearing to be in his 30s and dressed in attire typical of the Maos, observed the carriage as it disappeared into the distance. He smiled, intrigued by the unfolding events. A young man with silver hair looked at the older one with seriousness, noticing the smile that hinted at a plan to destroy the alliance and reclaim what was his. Rosweis, the silver-haired man, mentioned that Hyoudou Issei and a girl resembling the older man's sister had just passed by, smiling as he spoke. The younger man expressed interest in the resemblance, and Rosweis continued, suggesting that once the alliance fell, he could have both his sister Grafia and that girl. The young man eagerly agreed, bowing in respect and expressing his honor in working with Rosweis to achieve this goal. Rosweis then reminded Euclid that they still had to finish the little gift from Hades, which would ensure their victory and frame the seriousness. Euclid pointed out that they still had more than 2 months to create a perfect copy, to which Rosweis replied with excitement about the fun they would have. With that, they departed, leaving behind the fact that the one spying on Issei was none other than Rosweis Levon Lucifer, son of the original Lucifer, accompanied by Euclid Lucifuge, Grafia's younger brother. Meanwhile, Grafia and Venelana Bale stood before Rhys Gremory, who was packing the last of her belongings. Venelana, dressed elegantly in comfortable attire, asked Rhys if she was truly determined to go through with her decision. Rhys, serious, affirmed her choice, stating that she would not remain behind, even if she had never felt a strong bond with her mother or Grafia. Grafia reminded Rhys that she would need to leave her entourage and her old self behind. Rhys declared that she would abandon her title and everything else if it meant being by Issei's side, the only one who had ever defeated her, prompting her to change her spoiled attitude. Venelana sighed, wishing they didn't have to witness the unpleasant scene between Rhys's father and brother. Grafia, rubbing her temple, expressed that the memory would never leave her mind, but they needed to hurry as Milikas was waiting outside. Rhys, determined, summoned her piece of the king and destroyed it with her power of destruction, stating that the others no longer mattered to her. The 3 women left the Gremory mansion, hoping never to return or see those who had become insignificant in their lives, now heading to be with the one who had captured their interest, Hyoudou Issei, the current seriousness. Back with Issei, he was returning to Ku where Ravel and Kaneko awaited him. The 2 girls became defensive upon seeing Rosweis beside him, instinctively pulling him away from the Valkyrie. They confronted Issei, claiming they were taking back what was theirs and wouldn't let Rosweis easily take him away. Razor, grinning, remarked that it seemed Issei's future was to have a harem. He introduced himself as Razor Phoenix, heir to the Phoenix clan, and expressed his pleasure in meeting Rosweis, who nervously introduced herself as a Valkyrie and Issei's fiancée. Kaneko and Ravel were taken aback by the news of the engagement, looking at Issei, who became flustered. He explained that it was Odin's decision and that they would get to know each other better before anything became official. Rosweis confirmed that if their relationship developed positively, the engagement would be formalized soon. Ravel relaxed, noting that at least she had been the first to claim Issei's purity, while Kaneko playfully scolded her for being so direct. Issei, feeling embarrassed, urged them to keep quiet about certain things. Razor, aware of Kaneko and Ravel's feelings for Issei, suggested that they might need to remodel his house to accommodate everyone, including Rosweis, who would soon be living with him. Issei, confused, wondered how they would manage that without raising suspicions with his parents. Razor assured him that demons had their secrets and that he would talk to his parents to sort it out. Issei, unable to refuse, returned home and introduced Rosweis to his parents as an exchange teacher at Ku Academy. They accepted her without hesitation, pleased to see how well she and Issei got along, hoping that one day their son would give them the grandchildren they desired, much to Issei's embarrassment. The next day, Issei entered the occult research club, where he found the usual members along with Rosweis. He noticed Azazel, the governor of the fallen angels, sitting in Razor's seat, and Vale, the Hakuyu, beside him, dressed in the male Kuo uniform, which confused Issei. He wondered why Azazel and Vale were there. The brown-haired boy looked at his rival, who was simply smiling, and asked with a serious expression if it was true. The black-haired boy explained that he had become the advisor of the occult research club and that Vale would be entering as a second-year student in Issei's class, hoping they would get along. Issei was shocked, feeling overwhelmed by the news that he would be in the same city, academy, and classroom as Hakuryuku. The black-haired boy confirmed it and expressed his hope that they would get along. Issei sighed, feeling the weight of the situation, but at least he still had his pride as a dragon. The black-haired boy then inquired about Issei's preferences regarding women. Issei admitted that he had never really thought about it and didn't have a specific preference that was essential for his interest. The black-haired boy found this boring, while Vale, the white-haired boy, chimed in, stating he had a similar view but was particularly fond of certain physical attributes. The black-haired boy smiled, noting that Valley had his tastes defined. Issei, contemplating, glanced at Rosweis and mentioned that he would say he preferred certain features, but again he didn't see them as essential for his interest in someone. The black-haired boy stood up and created a magic circle in his ear, speaking to someone named Serafal about Issei's preferences. He felt a chill run down his spine as he sensed that something significant was about to change. Issei expressed his unease about the Hyoudou Issei's name being tarnished, to which Drake responded that he felt the same way. The black-haired boy assured Razor that his clan would soon receive a considerable amount of funds, which would likely make it one of the most prosperous clans. Amidst the conversation, a magic circle appeared at the center of the table, revealing a hologram of a woman with blonde hair, dressed in red, and striking blue eyes. She introduced herself as Layla Phoenix, the matriarch of the Phoenix clan and mother to Razor, Ravel, and Ruvel. Issei was taken aback, unable to believe that she was their mother, as she looked so young and beautiful. Ravel, embarrassed, pulled on Issei's ear, warning him not to flirt with her mother, whispering that it would jeopardize her chances with him. Layla smiled and mentioned that if she weren't married, she might consider Issei as a potential future patriarch of the Phoenix clan. Ravel, possessively hugging Issei, declared that she wouldn't share him. Layla found this amusing and entrusted Issei with the care of her daughter, adding that if Ravel lost her purity, Issei would have to marry her. Issei, feeling nervous, asked Layla not to rush things. She insisted he call her Okasama, playfully suggesting that calling her by her name might be too much for him. Issei, flustered, requested her to stop joking. Layla agreed but hinted that she was still considering the idea. As the communication ended, Ravel clung to Issei even tighter, declaring that she wouldn't share him with anyone. Meanwhile, the Phoenix group and Rosweis were in the Underworld, where the newly reincarnated demons were learning about their new lives and getting to know the Underworld better, especially those who hadn't participated in previous gatherings due to limited pieces. Razor asked if it was the first time Issei had come. The brown-haired individual looked at the blonde and remarked that he should have come a while ago, but he only had a queen, a bishop, a rook, and a knight available to present. He had been denied entry until he had at least 70% of his entourage, which he now had, with just one rook missing. The blonde smiled and mentioned that the place was still open for Rosweis to join. Rosweis declined, stating that she didn't want to become a demon. It sounded tempting, but what she had was enough for her. The blonde shrugged, acknowledging her decision, and reminded her that she was there for her fiancé, Issei. Rosweis blushed and looked away, still feeling shy about their relationship, which had only begun a week prior. The blonde smiled at the brown-haired individual, teasing him about having such a timid woman in Issei. The brown-haired individual nervously scratched his cheek, explaining that while she often showed a serious demeanor, she sometimes acted more like herself around him. He understood this, being her fiancé and her first boyfriend. Kaneko, the white-haired girl, pulled the brown-haired individual possessively towards her, declaring that she wouldn't let him spend too much time with Rosweis. She asserted that Issei belonged to her and, though it annoyed her to admit it, to Ravel as well. Ravel, feeling frustrated that her brother hadn't allowed her to sleep with Issei or live with him, reluctantly agreed that Kaneko was right. The blonde brother explained that their mother had requested that until she met Issei in person, Ravel would have to wait. Ravel grumbled that she would only be able to sleep with Issei until then, after which he would belong to her and Kaneko. Rosweis, feeling nervous, pointed out that she had the advantage of being Issei's fiancée and girlfriend, while Kaneko and Ravel were still just his underclassmen, even if they were in love with him. This revelation irritated both girls, who knew it was true. Ravel couldn't formalize anything until her parents met Issei, and Kaneko had her own past issues holding her back. Zenobia, the blue-haired girl, chimed in, claiming that she would win in this situation. Was Issei's childhood friend and had received his first kiss years ago, giving her just as much claim as the others, if not more. The brown-haired individual sighed, trying to calm the situation. He suggested that if they were going to keep arguing, they might as well form a harem so that everyone could be at peace. The three girls nodded, knowing they could at least be near Issei and have private moments with him. Kaneko had an advantage since she could teach him Bochujutsu. Ravel wanted to give herself to Issei again, but every time she had the chance, something prevented it, and she wanted to keep her past a secret until she could formalize their relationship with her parents. Zenobia had decided she wanted to have a child with her childhood friend, her first love, and even though she hadn't told Issei yet, she was determined to make it happen. Kaneko then looked at Rosweis and asked if she had done anything inappropriate with Issei. Rosweis, surprised, stammered that she and Kaneko were not involved in that way. The brown-haired individual, feeling nervous, explained that while he initially sought to regain his life, he wouldn't do so with just anyone. Kaneko wanted that kind of relationship at least once a week, and he felt he had regained his life because of it. He suggested they drop the topic, not wanting to discuss such matters any further. The blonde asked, trying to stop being a distraction. Kiba Hyoudou analyzed his companion and remarked that, in general terms, Issei-kun would have a 4.5 on the scale of perversion, which was below average. In contrast, Razor-sama would score a 7.8 in that regard, largely due to Akino-senpai's influence. Akino smiled as she caressed her king's chest and suggested that perhaps after this, they could spend some time together. She leaned closer to the blonde phoenix and whispered something that made him a bit nervous and flushed. Afterward, they headed to where the young demons were gathered, including those who had not yet formed their complete entourages. Among them was Sona Citri, the heir of the Citri clan, accompanied by her group. On the other side, somewhat apart from the others, stood a blonde with red eyes and a perfectly proportioned figure, who introduced herself as Sikvera Agars, the heir of the Agars clan. Another was Zephyrdor Glaciolabelas, the heir of the Glaciolabelas clan, who appeared rebellious and often irritated those around him. Lastly, there was Serorg Bale, the heir of the Bale clan, a muscular figure who commanded respect. The meeting of the young and not-so-young demons was proceeding normally until Mao Ajuka Beelzebub and Mao Seraphal Leviathan stood to announce a decision made among 3 of the Maos and a small number of elder demons. Ajuka called for Sekirei Issei to step forward, leaving Issei confused as he moved to the front, mirroring the surprise of everyone present. Following the incident with Kokobile and what he had done to a certain god knowledge only shared among the leaders of each faction and a few demons, it was decided that Issei would be promoted to a higher class. Seraphal interrupted Ajuka with a smile, exclaiming the news. No one could believe it, even Issei struggled to comprehend the announcement. However, one of the remaining Maos, a crimson-haired figure with a serious gaze directed solely at Issei, stood up to oppose the decision. Surzex Lucifer expressed his disapproval, stating that he, along with many elders from the council, opposed Issei's promotion to a higher class. Razor, curious, asked Surzex for his reasoning. The red-haired Mao explained that it seemed foolish to promote someone who had only been a demon for less than 2 months. He noted that Issei had defeated Kokobile using the ancient curse known as Juggernaut Drive, a power that did not belong to him. Surzex pointed out that without it, Vale, the Hakuryuku, could have easily defeated Kokobile. He questioned the wisdom of granting Issei such a title, suggesting that if they continued down this path, they might as well grant Vale his own entourage as well. Razor pressed further, asking if Surzex was implying that Issei's achievements were worthless and fabricated. Surzex confirmed his stance, adding that for Issei to have a chance at promotion, an experienced demon outside of the Maos and the council must oppose it. It seemed no one would dare to challenge that notion until a voice rose in opposition. The Phoenix group was taken aback when Rias Gremory, the younger sister of the crimson-haired Mao, stood up against Surzex. Issei had always believed she would return one day, but he hadn't expected it to be so soon. Surzex, incredulous, asked why she would oppose him. Rias, serious, explained that she had learned from someone who had opened her eyes, something Surzex had failed to do. She expressed her gratitude to Issei for helping her see the truth, and in return, she would stand against her brother. Surzex, disappointed, remarked that he had thought Rias was better than this and that his education had served a purpose. He insisted that more than one demon needed to oppose the promotion. Rias smiled, anticipating his response, and called upon her mother, Graphia. The two women, a brown-haired girl with purple eyes and a silver-haired girl with red eyes, looked at Seriousness with seriousness, which irritated him. Seriousness conceded that while it would not be easy to earn the title of high-class demon, Issei would need to defeat a god and an important leader or member of the Cow's Brigade. Ajuka interjected, stating that such a condition was excessive and unprecedented. Seriousness reiterated that it was the only condition, giving Issei 3 months to meet it or he would never be promoted. With that, Mao Lucifer left the gathering, leaving Issei feeling serious and frustrated. He expressed his gratitude to Rosweis, only to turn and find she was already gone. Kiba handed him a letter from her, which Issei accepted, promising to read it later. Just then, he felt a surge of determination as he declared he wanted to show something to Issei. Serafal, with her dark hair, jumped up excitedly and grabbed the arm of the brown-haired boy, urging him to follow her, expressing that he was going to love it. The boy sighed, feeling a mix of anticipation and dread as he was led to a room where Azazel and Valley were waiting, the latter barely holding back laughter. He couldn't shake the feeling that something unpleasant was about to unfold. As he settled down, he was confronted with a video featuring a song titled Dragon Issei, which left him in shock. It was a moment that shattered his pride, and even Draig, the Red Dragon Emperor, felt tears of humiliation at the sight. The boy couldn't believe it. This had to be a terrible joke. He felt his pride crumbling. Draig's cries echoed in the room, lamenting how he was being treated like a foolish, BRST-obsessed fool. The boy, frustrated, looked at the credits and shouted for Azazel to run. Issei was furious with Azazel for what he had done, feeling that his pride had been destroyed by the song's ridiculous lyrics. He wanted to confront Azazel, but Rosweis, Kaneko, Ravel, and Zenobia had to hold him back to prevent him from attacking the fallen angel governor, who merely smiled at the chaos he had caused. The boy shouted in anger, vowing that he would not forgive Azazel for this humiliation. He questioned why Azazel hadn't directed his antics at Hakuryuku instead. Azazel, with a grin, explained that he had offered the idea to Vale, but he had declined, stating that while it was tempting to gain affection from children and women, he had too much pride to stoop so low. He was content with the attention he received from the fallen angels he already had. The boy, still fuming, pointed out that Vale had claimed to have 5, to which Vale shrugged, explaining that one had been removed from his harem and that he had no emotional attachment to her. The boy was frustrated, asking why he hadn't been given her instead. Vale retorted that he wouldn't give gifts after being gifted all the fallen angels. Azazel chimed in, suggesting that the boy's situation had been the best thing that could have happened to him. Vale, annoyed, recalled that he had been a child when he arrived and hadn't lasted a month without losing his virginity. Azazel teased him about how he would have been a foolish fighter without his experiences. Vale confidently stated that he was now an improved version of Azazel, able to please a woman and not leave her wanting. The dark-haired boy, still irritated, remarked that if it weren't for Penemu adopting Azazel and caring for him, he would have been in trouble. In the midst of the banter, the boy declared that he would first take down Vale and then Azazel, furious over the ridiculous idea that had tarnished the name of Hyoudou. Vale revealed that the idea had originated from Serafal and himself, which shocked the boy. Serafal explained that it was meant to create more opportunities for them to spend time together. The boy lamented that he was now known as the Hyoudou who defeated Hades, only to be reduced to the dragon of BRSS. He rubbed his temples, feeling overwhelmed. Vale continued, explaining that he would be participating in events styled after Super Sentai, with Serafal as the princess and him as the dragon knight tasked with saving her. He would be under contract for at least 100 years to do so. The boy, trying to process everything, asked if there was anything else. Vale mentioned that figures of him and Serafal would be made, contingent on the success of the new program, which would start with the song. A percentage of the earnings would go to Clan Phoenix and some to him. The boy, still reeling from the news, asked if there was anything else he needed to know. The brown-haired young man tried to relax as he listened to his companion. The black-haired one explained that he and Vale would be trained by the former Dragon King, Tannen, to enhance their draconic abilities and help Issei control the aggressive behavior he had developed due to his dragon heritage. Issei expressed his frustration, stating that he wouldn't be so aggressive if others didn't provoke him, pushing his pride to its limits. The black-haired one smiled and encouraged Issei to take it in stride, suggesting that he would become a superstar in the underworld. Issei, still annoyed, remarked that he felt like a star whose pride had been crushed, but he asked when the training would begin. The black-haired one informed him that it would start the next day and last anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, depending on Tannen's assessment of their progress. The following day, Issei and Valle commenced their training with Tannen, where they would improve their physical strength, speed, endurance, and essential dragon skills, including their flames. The training was grueling, with Tannen giving his all against both of them. Breaks were non-existent, and the immense magical and demonic power they exerted prevented them from using their balance breakers. To survive, Issei and Valle found themselves fleeing from Tannen. After 3.5 weeks of relentless training, they finally reached their limit and took a much-needed 12-hour break to rest. Tannen observed the two sleeping and thought to himself that they had exceeded his expectations. He had initially believed they would struggle after a week, but they had proven themselves worthy of being called dragons. For the first time in over 3 weeks, Tannen closed his eyes to rest. The next day, the training resumed, and it was even more intense than before. However, Issei and Valle were not the only ones training. The members of the Phoenix group, along with Rosweis, decided to join in. Issei had specifically requested Rosweis to train with them. Gasper focused on enhancing his vampire powers and overcoming his fears. Zenobia worked on mastering the legendary sword Durandal, striving to unlock its full potential. Kiba Hyoudou trained to improve his swordsmanship and fully control his balance breaker, achieving success in both. Razor and Ravel trained with their brother Ruvel to enhance their flames, while Kaneko improved her physical abilities and senjutsu skills to become stronger and avoid being a burden to Issei. Akino trained with someone close to her to unleash her hidden fallen angel powers, which she was reluctant to use unless necessary. Rosweis returned to Asgard to learn as much as she could from her grandmother, who agreed to help her under the condition that she meet her granddaughter's fiancé. As the month came to an end, Issei was the first to return from training. He arrived at the Phoenix mansion to find it empty, so he settled at the entrance and began to meditate. He reflected on his return, wondering if there were any of Draig's previous hosts who could teach him techniques to enhance his skills as Hyoudou Issei. He sensed a need to increase his power but was unsure why. Draig responded in his mind, revealing that Issei felt a sense of déjà vu because of another version of himself that had entered his body and controlled it some time ago. Issei recalled that strange event in his life, which had led Rias Gremory to change her feelings toward him, as he had read in her letter. He was puzzled about the connection. Draig explained that this other version of him came from a vastly different dimension, and he could only grasp a small fraction of what had transpired there. Issei acknowledged this with a serious expression. Draig then mentioned that he had the perfect host to teach Issei what he needed. He introduced Elsha, a stunning woman with long blonde hair and an elegant purple dress, who greeted Issei with a smile. Draig informed Issei that Elsha was his most powerful female host and one of the most skilled, possessing techniques that would be beneficial for him. Elsha inquired if Draig was sure Issei was ready for such training, aware of the potential impact it could have on his body. The brown-haired boy asked, confused. Draig explained that it was a technique created by Elsha when she was his wielder. This technique was exclusive to her, and no other wielder had been able to replicate it. It was incredibly powerful but came with a high price, not as severe as the Juggernaut Drive, but close. Draig noted that this technique would grant a 700% increase in reflexes, senses, analysis, speed, and power, allowing him to match his enemy. The boy was astonished by this revelation. However, Draig warned him that there was a price to pay. Elsha added that the technique had flaws that could make it a double-edged sword. The first flaw was excessive energy consumption. Depending on the user, it could increase. For now, he could only use it for 60 seconds, and if he exceeded that time, he would face severe side effects, and doubling the time could lead to death. Issei listened intently to Elsha's words. The second flaw was that he himself was the limit of the transformation or technique. Confused, he asked if he was the limit. Elsha clarified that he could not expect to defeat someone of Hades' level in his current state. If his enemy was weaker, he would not gain an increase in strength, only the initial boost to his reflexes, senses, and analysis, but he would still face the same limitations. Understanding the implications, Issei acknowledged that it could be useless against someone who surpassed his limits. Elsha shared that she had learned this the hard way, and the price she paid was her own death. Issei was taken aback and serious as he absorbed this information. The third flaw was that he would not be able to use the balance breaker, its evolutions, or even enhance his power with the boosted gear, as that would overstrain his body. Even a single boost would cut his time in half and reduce his reflexes due to the increased pressure on his body. Elsha outlined these 3 flaws of her transformation technique. Issei recognized the severity of these flaws and realized that if he achieved an evolutionary stage of his balance breaker that surpassed his power, it could render the technique ineffective. However, he doubted he could reach such a level. Elsha observed that, based on his progress, his limits would be comparable to a Mao like Seraphal Leviathan, the former Dragon King Tanin, and possibly a god like Loki. She noted that this was merely a theory since she did not know the exact level of power he had achieved, but she believed he would be close to their level with the transformation technique. Issei was surprised by the potential usefulness of the technique but reminded himself that he could only use it for 60 seconds. Elsha advised him to use it only when necessary or in life-and-death situations. He assured her that he understood and would follow her guidance. Elsha smiled and said she would teach him the technique, hoping he would master it soon. Drake expressed pride in Elsha, ready to assist in the training. Inside the boosted gear, a whole day had passed, and Issei was exhausted from trying to master the technique. It had drained him physically to the point where he could barely move after using it for just a few seconds. However, Elsha reassured him that he would soon adapt and be able to control it fully. After finishing his training, Issei emerged from the boosted gear, surprised to find that only a short time had passed. He felt no fatigue in his body and clenched his fists, determined to master Elsha's technique to protect everyone. He closed his eyes to rest for a moment, only to hear footsteps. He turned to see Rosweis approaching. So, she was the first to arrive. Issei greeted her with a smile. Rosweis confirmed that she was indeed the first and then nervously asked if she could request something from him. He readily agreed, encouraging her to ask anything. Rosweis, blushing, expressed her desire for him to meet her grandmother, who wanted to know her boyfriend and fiancé. Issei smiled and agreed, stating that it was only natural for him to meet her family, which would help their relationship grow. Meanwhile, the Phoenix group, along with a few members of the Citri group, the former Dragon King Tanin, 2 hooded figures, and Rosweis, stood before Loki, the god of deception, who regarded them with superiority. Loki taunted Issei for bringing friends, implying he couldn't fight alone. Issei countered that he knew Loki wouldn't fight fairly, so he brought companions to face whatever Loki had in store, reminding him that he was indeed the god of deception. Loki laughed heartily, calling Issei clever and summoning his children, Fenrir, Hati, and Skoll, as 3 magical Nordic circles appeared on the ground. 3 large white wolves emerged, with the middle one being significantly larger than the others, a clear indication of the danger it posed. Vale, the albino wielder of the vanishing dragon, remarked that things were about to get interesting and declared he would handle Fenrir, while Issei would face Loki. Issei warned Vale not to underestimate Fenrir, as it could be even more dangerous than Loki himself. The albino smiled as he summoned his armor, deciding to keep all advice to himself for the rookie. With that, the Hyoudou launched itself at the giant wolf, which attempted to bite the albino. However, he quickly stopped Fenrir's jaws with both arms, pushing back significantly. The albino remarked on the strength of Loki's strongest son, charging his fists with intense blue energy and striking Fenrir. The blow had little effect, but he smirked, realizing he had the upper hand. The voice of the vanishing dragon Albion echoed repeatedly, urging the albino to strike Fenrir on the jaw, causing the wolf to bleed and retreat slightly. The albino then prepared to unleash a powerful technique, summoning a cannon from the gem on his chest that rapidly absorbed energy from Fenrir. Just as he was about to launch his attack, He was caught by what appeared to be a 1-meter-tall Asian dragon, preventing him from firing. Loki grinned, revealing that he had brought more than just 3 dragons. As he spoke, over 24 Asian dragons of the same size appeared. The ex-dragon king Tanin recognized the energy signatures and understood they were offspring of Midgard's armor. Loki confirmed this with a proud smile, indicating that it had been difficult to gather them. Razor, now serious, instructed Aquino, Kiba, Kaneko, Ravel, Gasper, and Zenobia to execute their plan. The group nodded and sprang into action, with Gasper using his sacred gear to hold back some of the dragons while Aquino and Zenobia attacked. Kiba, Kaneko, and Ravel protected Gasper from any threats. Meanwhile, the Citri group employed a more elaborate tactic, covering each other's backs and achieving near-perfect coordination. Tanin fought off the dragons that clung to him like leeches. As the distractions occupied the others, Loki called out to Hyoudou Issei, inviting him to join the fray. The brown-haired warrior lightened his armor and charged at great speed, activating his tower mode just inches away from Loki and delivering a powerful blow. However, Loki effortlessly stopped the punch with one hand. The warrior smiled, revealing cannons on his shoulders, indicating he had a plan. He aimed to keep Loki close and unleashed his ultimate attack, the Blaster Dragon Cannon. As he fired, 2 arms emerged from the blast, crushing the cannons as if they were made of paper. Surprised, the warrior realized Loki had anticipated his move and appeared behind him, grabbing him by the tail of his armor and spinning him before launching him forcefully into the ground. Loki then unleashed a powerful lightning strike that hit the warrior. He activated his tower mode just in time to absorb most of the impact, although his armor was ultimately destroyed. Loki questioned whether he was the one who had defeated Kokobel and faced Hades, implying that it might have all been mere talk. The warrior, slowly rising and trembling, acknowledged that he hadn't even scratched Loki, a testament to the god's power. He smiled at Rosweis, who was finishing off one of the dragons, and requested 30 seconds to activate a special ability. Rosweis agreed and charged toward Loki, launching various attacks. Loki dismissed them effortlessly with a single hand. The warrior then called out to Asia through a magical circle, asking for her assistance. She agreed, smiling as she prepared to help. Asia, now revealed without her hood, created a bow and vowed to support her brother. Another hooded figure, Irina, joined in, quickly removing her cloak to reveal white wings and a katana. With a swift strike, she cut one of the dragons in half, clearing a path for Asia. Asia then fired 3 arrows that struck the warrior, healing him completely instead of causing harm. Grateful, the warrior expressed his thanks to Asia, acknowledging he owed her one. She playfully reminded him of how he could repay her. With a calm demeanor, he closed his eyes and began to chant, declaring himself the one who would awaken, bring peace to the world, and surpass any adversary. He proclaimed he would destroy all evil without hesitation, unleashing the Imperial Dragon over Limit Breaker. As he did, a brilliant light enveloped everyone, and the power of Hyoudou Issei surged rapidly. Valle, observing the transformation, noted the new level achieved by the albino and resolved not to be outdone. As he spoke, he shattered his armor, successfully separating himself from the dragon. He was on the verge of awakening, declaring himself the White Dragon Emperor who would reshape the law. He would bring destruction, and his orders would be absolute. He would be the White Dragon Emperor who dominated over the gods, commanding obedience from the silver-white illusions and the paths of his empire. A brilliant light appeared in the sky, matching Issei's, and in an instant, the glow faded to reveal 2 armors, one crimson and one silver, both radiating an extraordinary power that surpassed 2 of the current Maos. Issei's armor boasted 4 dragon wings that resembled crimson crystal, and his gauntlets were lightweight yet equipped with claws sharp enough to cut through anything. His legs were similarly armed, with an additional claw at the back of his heels. The chest displayed the form of a phoenix enveloped in flames, while the helmet resembled that of the balance breaker, minus the face-covering part. Valle's armor appeared almost identical to his balance breaker but in an intense silver. The wings of his armor had vanished, replaced by a flowing cape of bluish-silver flames that revealed wings of fire, providing substantial defense. His arms showcased golden protrusions at the elbows, akin to Issei's balance breaker but slimmer and sharper, and he lacked a helmet. The god smiled and asked if that was his maximum limit, referring to Hyoudou and Hyoudou. Issei replied that it was, but warned Loki not to underestimate him. He claimed to be 50 times stronger, perhaps even 100 times, smiling as his eyes turned a bluish green. Loki laughed, arrogantly questioning if he thought he could defeat him with such a minor increase. Issei, grinning from less than 2 meters behind him, stated that if that were not the case, he wouldn't be positioned so closely. Loki, incredulous, stammered in disbelief, unable to comprehend how he had not seen Issei move. Issei teased that perhaps Loki was afraid, suggesting they were evenly matched. Loki insisted that he could never be matched, swiftly turning to strike Issei, who quickly blocked the blow. Despite this, Loki continued to attack, landing multiple strikes that Issei deflected. However, Issei noticed something unusual about the way Loki fought. Two peculiarities. In fact, Loki, astonished, questioned how Issei could fight as if he understood his movements and style. He noted that the flames surrounding Issei were not dragon flames but those of a phoenix. Issei grinned, explaining that he had learned Loki's fighting style just by observing him, a skill granted by his crimson form. Enraged Loki declared he would not allow Issei to copy his movements and conjured 2 magical circles in his hands, commanding his creations to emerge. From the ground, countless circles appeared, summoning copies of Fenrir and the Dragon King's offspring, among which was a creature with flames in its mouths and 3 heads. Tannen expressed his surprise at Loki's madness, exclaiming that he was a lunatic. Loki taunted that he would be able to handle both Issei and his creations simultaneously. Issei reminded him that he had Valley on his side, smiling confidently. Valley, serious, remarked that Loki's tactic revealed his cowardice but decided it was time to have some real fun. He activated Dragon Dimension, and various forms of Juggernaut Drive appeared, comprising 40% of everything Loki had summoned. The sheer display astonished everyone present, as Hyoudou was known to be the most powerful and lethal of all. Vala challenged Loki's creations, smiling as he snapped his fingers, sending all his creations against Loki's clones and offspring. Despite the numerical superiority of Loki's creations, some managed to evade the Juggernaut Drive attacks, launching themselves at the demons, Tannen, and the 2 new girls, as well as Rosweis. Determined not to give up, Issei called for Akino and Ravel to support him, creating a massive fireball. He instructed Kiba, Kaneko, and Zenobia to continue protecting Gasper, declaring that no one would fall that day. The dark-haired girl summoned a surge of lightning, launching it toward Razor's fireball. The blonde girl, engulfed in flames, transferred her energy to Razor, declaring her support. Razor, with determination, unleashed a massive fireball that engulfed many of Loki's creations, knowing they needed more power to defeat their foes. Zenobia, with a serious expression, drew forth a powerful aura from Durandal, stating her intention to assist Razor and Akino. The blonde knight, Kiba, responded affirmatively, creating 2 demonic sacred swords, one of ice and one of lightning. He summoned shadowy copies of himself, each wielding various swords. Zenobia called for Irina to support her, unfurling her demon wings and soaring into battle, slicing through one of the dragons. Irina followed suit, positioning herself back-to-back with Zenobia, reminiscing about their past battles with a smile as she infused her katana with sacred power, transforming it into a weapon of light. Zenobia smiled back, affirming their unstoppable combination of demon and angel, vowing to protect everyone from harm. Meanwhile, Saji Genshru observed the strength of his peers, noting how Hyoudou Issei and Valley had reached a level far beyond his own, and he had yet to awaken his balance breaker. Frustrated, he clenched his fists, feeling inferior to Hyoudou, and resolved to surpass him, reminding himself that he too possessed a sacred gear linked to a dragon. With newfound determination, something awakened within him as Vitria stirred to life. The Dragon King spoke, questioning if Saji was his partner. Saji introduced himself, expressing his desire to make a deal for power. The Dragon King listened with interest, offering Saji a temporary balance breaker in exchange for half of his body. Saji accepted without hesitation, ready to gain strength. They shouted the words of the balance breaker together, and Vitria empowered Saji, enveloping him in a dark purple armor. No longer would he be a burden. He unleashed his tentacles to capture several dragons and Fenrir clones, absorbing their power and vowing that they would all fall. With a fierce declaration, he launched a massive black and purple fireball that consumed numerous dragons and clones, leaving the Citri group in shock. Meanwhile, Asia Argento healed her allies with green arrows from her balance breaker, Twilight Healing. Suddenly, a Fenrir clone charged at her from behind. Closing her eyes, she braced for impact, but when she opened them, she saw a dark-haired figure with his fist striking the great wolf, sending it flying. They had arrived just in time. The dark-haired boy smiled. Asia, surprised, recognized him. Serorg Bale introduced himself with a grin, apologizing for his delay as he had to gather some family members. As he spoke, a tremendous wave of destructive power descended, obliterating many Fenrir and dragons, revealing a brown-haired girl and a redhead, while some foes were impaled by ice stakes, showcasing a silver-haired figure in the distance. It was time for the Bale family to demonstrate their power, Serorg declared with a smile. To be continued. They believed it. Here's a preview of the Hyoudou Issei verse. I hope you enjoy it. Hyoudou Issei verse Chapter 1. Encounters. Hyoudou Issei. His vision faded to black, and in an instant, a small light illuminated his face, revealing a city in ruins. This left him confused and serious, as he could recognize some familiar sights among the destruction, including Ku Academy, the place he had left 3 years ago, where he had experienced moments of true happiness before losing everything due to his weakness and helplessness. Tears began to well up, but he quickly wiped them away. Even after 3 years, he still struggled to overcome the feelings of inadequacy he had felt during the most crucial moments. Nevertheless, he pressed on, and suddenly, someone appeared before him, wearing Drake's scale mail. He couldn't comprehend how this was possible, as the only copy had been destroyed long ago. "Come with me," the familiar voice said, so familiar that it almost angered him. He followed, and within minutes, they arrived at a gathering of others wearing his balance breaker. This was becoming increasingly strange, but among them he could still recognize the hair colors of some women, even in their armor. They were the ones he had failed to protect due to his weakness. Though he wished to approach them, he felt he had no right to do so. He would only risk repeating the past, a second time he could not endure. Finally, we are all gathered. That voice, that cursed voice, the voice of the person he hated most in the world, the one who had taken away his family, friends, and the women he loved. It was none other than Rosweis Legan Lucifer, the being he despised completely. How could he also possess a balance breaker? First, how was it possible that he was alive? Second, how did he have Drake's armor? This was confusing, but there was only one answer. He was not the Hyoudou Issei had killed that day, just as none of these women were the ones he loved. They must be from another universe. End of Issei's PV. It's unlikely that any of you don't know me, but my name is Rosweis Levan Lucifer, and I am the most powerful Hyoudou Issei of all, the albino Lucifer said with a broad smile. He invited anyone to ask him any questions they had. One of the drag bearers approached slowly. "I have a question for you," said one of the drag bearers, removing his helmet to reveal a dark-haired man with violet eyes, who was the most muscular among them. "You must be Serorg, right? Who would have thought that the useless Bale would be one of the Hyoudou Issei?" the old Lucifer said with a smile. "And what is your question? What are we doing here, and how did you become a Hyoudou Issei?" Bale asked seriously. "Let's just say there are beings that travel between universes solely to devour all the Hyoudou Issei, and we are the last line of defense," the old man replied with a smile. "They want to devour us?" the dark-haired man asked, confused. "Yes, they are dragon eaters, and apparently, their favorite dish is Hyoudou Issei. They have already killed 700 Hyoudou Issei. There was a team before us, but they were annihilated," the old man said, his expression turning serious. "The only survivor told me about it and I killed him. He was worthless. As for your question, it's simple. I killed his previous bearer. In short, I killed Hyoudou Issei." Some were surprised, while others were not, but one among them began to laugh. "Don't make me laugh, Rosweis. You couldn't kill him even if he were unarmed," one of the Hyoudou said with a smile. "Well, little Valakuen, you are also a Hyoudou? What a surprise," the old man said with a grin. "By the way, in this universe we are in, I killed you after taking out your mother." "Always so annoying, Rosweis," the albino said seriously. "And if you don't believe me, I will prove it," the old man said, smiling as he increased his power. Crimson Lucifer. With a wave of energy, Rosweis donned a crimson armor that some recognized while others did not. This form may be familiar to some and not to others, but it is the most powerful form that Hyoudou Issei possessed. "Yet I still killed him," the old man said with a smile. "With this power, I am the most powerful Hyoudou." Vale, the albino, smiled as he remarked that Hyoudou's silver form was now useless. He pointed out that it had become a relic, no longer even 10% of what he had achieved, merely a toy for the Hyoudou he knew. One of the female Hyoudou questioned if he had indeed killed Issei. Vale responded, recalling the last time he had seen Kuroka, the cat, was when he had eliminated the resistance. He taunted her, suggesting she was offering her body to prevent harm. The serious Nikomata declared that she didn't care about what had happened, but Rosweis would never replace Issei, who was more of a man than Rosweis would ever be in millennia. Rosweis, smiling, proposed a challenge to prove it. Another female Hyoudou, who revealed herself to be Rias Gremory, warned Rosweis to stop his nonsense or she would have to eliminate him again, channeling a vast amount of destructive power. Rosweis mockingly commented on Rias's attempt to defend the memory of her deceased boyfriend, questioning how many others were with her. Another Hyoudou, Akino Himejima, silenced him with a display of sacred lightning, while Shido Irina brandished a katana radiating sacred power, threatening him as well. Rosweis sarcastically remarked on their intimidating presence. Zenobia Corda appeared next, wielding a powerful blue sword, stating that she didn't know who Hyoudou Issei was, but if he insulted her friend Irina, he would regret it. Rosweis continued to taunt, mentioning the absence of other female warriors he deemed useless. Rosweis, another Hyoudou, revealed herself, serious and ready to confront him about his insults. Saji Genshuru, one of the male Hyoudou, removed his helmet and declared that Rosweis would not insult them or Hyoudou. The black-haired Bale was surprised by this display of loyalty, recalling that his cousin had been completely different in the past. Rosweis, with a sinister smile, warned them to step back or there would be a massacre. He intended to demonstrate why he was the most powerful Hyoudou by eliminating one of them at random. He pointed to a young man in the corner, declaring that he would die. As Rosweis charged the cannons of his crimson form, he proclaimed that he would show no one could disrespect him. The chosen Hyoudou remained unfazed, challenging him to try. With a smile, Rosweis unleashed a powerful laser attack, which surprised everyone with its intensity. However, the Hyoudou raised his hand, redirecting the attack into the sky, where it exploded harmlessly. Rosweis, grinning, recognized the ability as one only two beings could use, realizing the young man was Hyoudou Issei. Those who knew him were taken aback and turned to look at him. Issei, now more mature with a beard that added to his masculinity, acknowledged Rosweis' audacity but questioned if he thought that would be enough to defeat him. He vowed to show Rosweis who he would respect from that moment on. As Rosweis attempted to strike him, Issei vanished from sight, crushing Rosweis' hand and demonstrating his newfound strength. Impossible, the old man said incredulously while holding his damaged hand. Perhaps you defeated an Issei who was as incompetent, if not more so than I, for failing to protect what he loved. But I do not forgive the elderly, the brown-haired one declared, striking Rosweis' stomach with such force that it crumpled like paper. Relying on an imperfect form and not increasing your base power is pathetic, he continued, creating a crimson sphere of energy in his hand. I would eliminate you, but if I do, I would lose valuable information, so sleep now, you old fool. With that, he released a small burst of energy, knocking Rosweis unconscious. Does anyone else want to end up like him? No one knew what to say, some showed a hint of fear while others were simply astonished. That was what he expected, the brown-haired one thought as he stepped back, glancing slightly behind him to see the girls who knew him wanting to approach. "But I don't want any of you near me," he said with great seriousness. "I only bring tragedy to those who are close to me, so keep your distance if you wish to stay alive." Without saying more, he walked away from everyone. The girls murmured, feeling something for him, even if some had lost him while trying to protect them. End of the preview. In what seemed to be an ancient castle, 6 beings with human-like appearances were seated around a table, eating. However, this was no ordinary meal, as at the table was a fallen angel named Kokabeel, who felt and witnessed with horror and pain as his own parts were consumed. Among the 6 beings, there were 3 men and 2 women, one of whom had white hair and black eyes like the infinite night, who merely smiled. "So you claim to be the most powerful Security? Let's enjoy this grand banquet. We still have plenty left," he said with a wicked grin, turning to look at a dark-haired one who trembled with fear. "It's your turn, Security Diodora. I will not be devouring by monsters like you," the dark-haired one exclaimed, activating his gauntlet and thus his balance breaker. "Die." With that, he unleashed a barrage of magical attacks until he could no longer continue, leaving a great trail of smoke. "Pathetic." The white-haired one laughed, a hint of fear in his voice, as when the smoke cleared, he saw with great horror how all of his efforts had gone to waste. "It'ly impossible. Mio, take care of him. He could be your snack," the silver-haired one said with boredom. "Yes, Razork," the blonde replied, appearing in front of the dark-haired one, grabbing his head and slamming it against the ground without killing him. "Now my snack." With that, she tore off the dark-haired one's arm, which caused him to scream in indescribable pain. Without caring, she consumed it as if it were a chicken leg. A bit raw," she said, making flames appear in her right hand to heat the arm a little before eating it again. "Better he." "Why monsters?" the dark-haired one said, in pain and exhaustion. "Food doesn't talk," the blonde said, crushing the dark-haired one's head, ending his life. "Ugh, he left his brain matter on my foot." "Stop being so childish, Mio," the albino said with a small smile. "Rika, have you discovered the new locations of our next meal?" "Yes, Razork-sama," said a curvy brunette with silky brown hair. "A distraction has also been created for the 10 legendary beings." "Very well, it's time to go for our next dinner," the being named Razork said with a broad smile. "My appetite will not end until I have devoured every Security that exists." The greatest multiversal event is about to begin, where every Security from different universes is in danger, and the only way to defeat this threat is through the union of all remaining Security. End of the prologue. Until next time, I will soon bring you a new chapter, but vote on which FIC you want me to upload a chapter for. Goodbye.